CIO News, Voice of CIO series. I'm Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and a contributing editor at CIO News, where we write about business strategy and boardroom issues for technology leaders. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, which is cionews.co.in, as well as our CIO News LinkedIn page. Let me dive in introducing my guest for today. He is Mr. Manoj Deorukhkar, the Chief Information Officer at Sterling and Wilson Limited. Manoj is a techno-functional leader with 30 plus years of rich experience. With his experience, Manoj has been facilitating businesses with growth and profitability, as well as ensuring business continuity, scalability, sustainability, and knowledge management. Manoj has domain expertise across EPC, engineering, construction, real estate, utilities, automotive, and metals, and possesses a balanced exposure to IT consulting and CIO roles, covering the entire gamut of IT value chain. Welcome, Manoj.
Thank you very much, Khushbu, and looking forward to more interaction.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to host you today, Manoj. So, great. We can begin. So if you can give us a quick brief about Sterling and Wilson India. We are all aware about the brand, but if you can give us a quick brief, that would be great.
Yes. Sterling Wilson is a part of a much larger group called Shapoorji and Pallonji. Shapoorji Pallonji is more than 150 years old company. Sterling Wilson itself is about 90 years old company. So we call ourselves as traditionally modern organization. It's a kind of rich heritage. At the same time, we are trying to be at the forefront of technology to stay fit and ahead of rest of the industry which is there. Sterling Wilson, as I mentioned, 90 years back, they started with managing EPC contracts for electrical engineering. So electric engineering and power management is a basic offering that we have across various domains. As we speak, we have 6 divisions. The traditional one is MEP. We are in data center. We are in diesel generating set, DG sets. We do transmission and distribution, and the complex hybrid energy solutions, which deals with battery storage and multi-source power management. And our largest division and most successful division is solar, the renewable. So we do EPC contracting as well as operations and management services in all these verticals. We operate out of 28 countries, and India being the largest geography that we have, and we have about more than 5,000 employees across the world. And of course, there are many contingent workforce, maybe more than 10,000, which work on various projects. So power management is a core to our entire offering, and we are looking forward to being at the forefront of the technology. Solar is already world's largest EPC contractor in solar, and we are hoping that other divisions also will scale up to that particular accreditation.
Sure, great. Manoj, since the pandemic has hit us hard in the last 8-9 months, I just want to understand, how did Sterling and Wilson responded to such situation?
EPC industry was the first one to get impacted because of the fact that unlike many other industries, we have multiple projects. So Sterling Wilson had close to about 450 projects running at that particular point of time. And they work out of the premises which are not our place. It is typically the customer's premises that we work into. And managing the supply chain of materials, of services, of labor force, and very importantly is the entire logistics of the operations was very, very difficult. So I would say by and large, EPC industry was the first one to get into a big impact of lockdown, where virtually everything came to the to standstill. If you really look back, there have been three phases of this pandemic. The first phase was when the pandemic struck us, and this was a era of complete lockdown confusion. We
Yeah,
are not too sure how long it will be there, how big it will be there. We thought it will last for 1 month, and the rest is the history, which is
true.
the second phase was to get adjusted to the pandemic and kind of keep the show going
Yeah,
with whatever constraints that we had.
yeah,
And the third phase is when currently we are coming out of the impact of pandemic and trying to get back to the normal life.
yeah,
Though the risk of the second wave is very much there in the air, and it has already struck in the Western world.
yeah,
Uh, so we have been very successfully, I think, able to manage phase one and phase two. None of our operations were impacted,
okay,
barring the physical places which are there. So far it has been good, and now I think the end of the tunnel is visible, and we definitely expect the normalcy to come very soon. And
yeah,
that itself is a very very challenging phase, because when you're talking about being normal, it
yeah,
means that your business continuity principles have to be far more stronger.
true,
Your risk management has to be far more stronger. Your supply chain, which has been disrupted, has to get back into more predictable way. uh,
correct,
so we are working on to that. I think those are the kind of priorities. And I think above all, what uh, what impacted each of us, not only just EPC, but across, is a disruption in the cash flow and the financial supply chain.
yeah,
So that also we are seeing it's slowly coming in, and we expect that will be the cycle that will get normal the last. Everything else will fall in place, but the money supply would be the last one. And that itself is a very, very important challenge that each of us is trying to play with. Happy to say, not only Sterling Wilson, but by and large, the industries have been able to get that particular act together.
yeah,
And so we are kind of going towards the end of the tunnel, and hopefully there will be sunshine at the end of it.
true, true,
So during this time, I think what were the major focus areas was, I think, the communication. So communication to your employees, communication to your suppliers, service providers, very important to your clients, the government authorities. And so communication has been a very, very important part of it. The second very important part of it was the risk management. So assessment of risk, getting the data together to be able to make the next plan,
yeah,
managing your cash flow, very very tightly and with a total control. I think those have been the areas of priority, and in each of that, IT had a very, very major role to play, whether it is collaboration technology, whether it is business continuity by moving to cloud, whether it is the MIS that needs to be gathered together, or it is forecasting that needs to be done. I think all of that
yeah,
had IT as a baseline. So during this time, we also saw a very, very important shift in the mindset
yeah,
is that by and large, I think our employees, our leadership
yeah,
have been now, quite convinced with the power of IT and the digital, era that was just a buzzword 1 year back
yeah,
has actually come to being a real, savior in many ways. And we see this particular initiative to
yeah,
continue and gather momentum in a time to come.
true, very true. Manoj, I just also wanted to understand, as per you, what percentage of work you think will continue to remain digital post COVID?
Uh, I think every industry and every function will have a different, dynamics
Yeah,
into which, but by and large, if you really see, uh, the back office
yeah,
can be 100% digital. There's no reason for the back office, the support services to be really, to be on site or physically to be present.
right.
Fortunately, during this 8, 9 months, I think everybody has found a digital way of dealing with the things when physical was not possible, which is there. And I don't think that we'll go back to the old ways of, doing the physical thing, which is there.
Correct.
Uh, when it comes to the direct workforce or where the physical work really happens,
Hmm.
it is really getting very, very interesting. And there's no straight answer because there's a roadmap.
Yeah,
So whether it is manufacturing, whether it is construction, whether it is something to do with even a split second uh, uh, decision functions like treasury, for example. They have to do a lot of aging this.
Yeah.
This is where again IT is playing a very very important role to I'm not saying eliminate, but reduce the dependence on the physical activities in terms of the physical presence of a person to be available.
Right.
And this is where AI, ML, all your IoTs are really playing very very important thing. Uh,
Correct.
Let me give an example of our solar plants where we are doing operations and maintenance, engagements, and these are very very critical because power generation, as you know, is a part of essential services, and nobody can afford to have anything going wrong there.
True.
Uh, we had implemented 2 years back. We took this initiative of implementing a remote monitoring system called CMS and maintenance management system called CMMS, which is based on IoT. And because of the entire architecture of having IoT picking up every signal out of your SCADA system, out of your PLC controllers, and some of the direct feeds which are available, analogous or digital feeds which are available. We took it to the cloud, based on application which was on AWS,
Right.
and then virtually anybody in the world who's authorized to view that data was able to actually do it, and remotely was able to see whether the plant is performing
Correct.
properly or there's any problem which is coming. Now, that would mean that physically if someone is not able to reach,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And I think that's the new normal that is really coming in, which is so we have to find these solutions, and there's no straight answer to that. And this is where I think a CIO will have to play a role of a chief innovation manager
Correct.
than information manager.
Yeah.
But if I had to really say put a figure, it will be very difficult. But there are certain traits like repetitive manufacturing.
Yeah.
This percentage can be very very high. It definitely, the machine can be automated and can be controlled, can be trained to do that. There are certain design and engineering work
Yeah.
we expecting that even it will have a very high level of digitization, given the fact that all building blocks will have to be decoded and will have to be kind of brought in here.
Right.
Services 100% can definitely be digitized. Of course, it will require a lot more investments to go into that, but yes, it can be definitely done.
Right.
So I think there is a varying degree, but it is an area which is absolutely attractive and potential, and we must explore it so that repetitive jobs can be all automated.
Correct. Correct. Agreed. So, Manoj, also, what kind of innovation you're adopting for Sullivan and Wilson, and you've adopted, and what technologies you think is a way forward uh, in 2021? So, if you can give some lights on that as well.
There's a very interesting side to the world, when you talk about innovations. So for many of the people that I talk to, uh, they equate innovation as a new technology which is adopted, which is it can be data science, AI, ML, IoT, whatever, drones. Now these are all means of achieving something
Yeah.
and not an end by itself. So when it comes to innovation, I think the basic principles of the IT management do not really go away. They're very much in this. Uh, the ask on many of the CIOs, and I'm sure all my peers would agree in totality, is not to manage the information systems anymore, because those can be done, can be outsourced, can be automated. We've got n number of tools which are available and means of getting out of your daily operations. We have to focus more to know our business and look at it with fresh set of eyes and question as to why this can't be done in a different way. Why do you need this? And this is, I think, is a seed of innovation, the curiosity, the challenging attitude, and very very importantly, a keen eye to get into the details and find out what can be can be done. So I think the time that has come now is that for every innovation that we are talking about,
Yeah.
there has to be a return that the organization must get, and that is a qualitative return or a quantitative return. It can be both. Obviously, everything can't be quantitative.
Yeah.
Okay, it can be measured, but the entire experience can be qualitative, and that reflects in some other KPI being improved, etc., which is there. So innovation for sake of innovation cannot be justified anymore
Yeah.
in today's world.
Yeah.
So there has to be a business return, and that business return would mean that you really have to partner, collaborate with your business colleagues, and come up with a business case which can have AMI. I mean, it can have AI, can have ML, can have whatever analytics, whatever it is there. It definitely is going to be again a tool and not an end by itself. To find the right kind of a business case, I think is going to be a big challenge,
Right.
and that can come only when you get deeper into the business.
Business.
Uh, Let me kind of cite some of these examples.
Yeah.
A very simple innovation, okay, of just putting a collaborative tool together
Yeah.
can make a dramatic change into the way that you can turn around your process time, and your closure rate of service calls really gets very very high. Uh, a simple tool like mobility.
Yeah.
Okay, now mobility is given; it has to be there, but it has really made such an impact on the staff which is out in the field,
Yeah.
and they have been able to really stay connected and do it. So innovation need not mean a very heavy IT tool, or something which is cutting edge technology. Sometimes you have to, but I think being keen to know the business and understand how you can make an impact to the business, and getting the right tool is going to be the this. Now there are certain very basic innovations that you have to do, and you may call it a innovation, you may call it a hygiene factor.
Yeah.
Cloud is a necessity.
Correct.
Okay, whether you call it an innovation or you call it whatever it is, there cloud is a necessity because your entire business continuity, your scalability, your responsiveness, your elasticity, all of that is definitely going to be fulfilled by having a right cloud strategy and partnership which is there. Mobility, no questions asked for everything which is there. If you're providing something on mobile, obviously, during pandemic when people were not even, some of them were not able to even get their laptops in time, or convert desktops into laptops and take it home.
Yeah.
They were still able to transact and carry on with their duties using a mobile app,
Right.
and that played such a wonderful role. Such a simple, seemingly no-brainer kind of thing like mobility, which is there. Uh, a very important point is that empowering people to have their own MIS. A very, very important and very effective this which is there. And obviously, once you've done these very basic things,
Yeah.
okay, then comes the next layer where you really have an AI intervention, or convert some of these manual things into so looking at the process, and looking at process not just from a high level, but to get deep into what is being done and how it is being done and how best it can be done using an IT tool is the approach that is really going to help us to get. And once you have the proper business requirement definition which has been done,
Yeah.
problem is explained, you always can get experts to really tell you and help you out
Yeah.
in terms of getting the right tool and implement it. So I think that these are my thoughts about the innovation.
Awesome, awesome. So, also, if you can, throw us some light on what does the future of work look like for your industry, and what technologies do you see as a way forward? I mean, you did mention about a lot of them already, but from a future of work perspective, while everything is moving hybrid, so maybe if you can share some insights there.
Uh, for EPC domain, I can speak about it because that's something that I can definitely contribute rather than talking about Indian domain. EPC domain has a lot of physical content of work which is there, a lot of content of work.
Right.
Uh, 10 years back, the entire EPC world was actually broken into two silos. One was where you would do the project work, which is a very, very physical world which is there. And then you had a head office or a back office which did accounting, which did, all sorts of procurement and HR and everything which is there. And
Right.
there's a big gap between what's the reality on the ground on the project side versus what is happening on HR. So more or less the IT, outlook was on compliances.
Yeah.
Get your balance sheet, get your audits up, etc., etc.
Right.
Currently, if you really look at it, how the EPC is now actually has got three interlinked words. The first world is of the client. So you got to be really integrated with your client in terms of knowing what's plan, what's their thought process, what if even their feelings as to how they feel about your services, the real problems. The second world is of your suppliers and service providers, which are again going to be a very, very important part of your entire this because EPC world is highly, highly dependent on suppliers and service providers. You cannot be a standalone all under one roof. Never is going to happen. And then the third world is our own internal world where everything, our own workforce, our own project sites, our own head offices and regional offices, country offices, all of that which is there. Now these three worlds are inseparable. They are
Yeah.
highly integrated. Okay, there's a spirit of collaboration that obviously the king is the server, is the customer, and then the internal world and then the supplier world. That's how the entire communication and protocols really keep on going, which is there. Now this is the organization that we are envisioning to be existing. Now what does it really need? It needs a free access of data. What's relevant to everybody's role. Okay, it needs extremely fast communication, which goes across the entire value chain. It also needs a quick response time for anything that changes. I mean, these are all very very high level, uh, points which are there.
Yeah.
But what is really important is that we are actually moving into the IT system, which is definitely on cloud, which is going to be a hybrid cloud, because some of our heavy applications like ERP are still, are going to be on your premise, or in our case, it's going to be on a private cloud, and everything else is going to be either on the public cloud or some of the cloud, which is going to be there. So that's the only way we can have business continuity, a good amount of infrastructure uptime,
Yeah.
accessibility, and very importantly, it is good scalable. So if we get 10 more projects, we don't have to really start bothering about the performance on that. The agility is going to be very important. We have to, launch the applications and release them very fast. To be information management is going to be very, very important because everybody needs analytics, empowered analytics. So data democratization is going to be a very, very important concept. Uh, but above all, we require two things. One is the information security,
Yeah.
which is getting very, very important. Even during pandemic, it was one of the topmost concerns that we had. And second is the extremely effective cost budgeting and monitoring,
Yeah.
because as we are getting out of this pandemic, I think cash is not going to be very, very easily available. Your budgeting is going to be extremely tight. And so every dollar that you're putting has to be very, very, put very wisely and on the priorities which are there.
Correct.
So these are, the pillars onto which we see our entire, and of course there'll be AI where we already taken a, small steps, ML where we are, very much, which is there. IoT, I already spoken about it. And so I think this is where we are moving to.
True. Yes. Yes, great. Also, Manoj, what advice, would you want to give to other companies? Maybe certain do's and don'ts, certain best practices. You did mention about a lot of suggestions around technologies for future work and innovation strategies that can be brought in, but certain do's and don'ts that you would want to share.
Uh, I will share, my understanding in a very simplistic manner.
Yeah.
Uh, So there are two parts of IT operations or IT scope of activities which is there. One is business as usual, and second are initiatives or new projects which are there. Classically, that is the definition that we always have. Uh, so you can superimpose that on any technology innovation, whether it is IoT. Uh, so in IoT, we have business as usual because you have to continue to be supported. At the same time, we are building newer application, we are building newer use cases, etc., which is there. This is going to be two worlds that we have to constantly juggle. When it comes to business as usual, it's the most important part of it because you cannot afford any disruption of something which is already working. So I think the practice there is that innovate, improvise, and reduce the cost, reduce the dependence as much as you can. And that's a process that has to continuously go on. It's a classic ITIL principle that you have to kind of really implement efficiency, productivity, continual innovation, root cause analysis. So that's one part of it. And of course, replacement of certain applications with newer ones because those are not. So business as usual takes up a sizable part of our day-to-day, operations which are there. I
Right.
think it is best that we have a very rigorous protocol, cadence meetings, and a lot of MIS that is put in there, and every dollar is counted there, every rupee is counted, and do that. If we can get that into control,
Yeah.
it has two advantages. Number one is that there are no disruptions, so your user service and experience keeps on going very well.
Yeah.
Second is that you do a very less firefighting. Business as usual actually takes a lot of I would say power out of any CIO because there are issues, there are things which are happening. It will free up the time to really focus on something which is more innovative. If you
Right.
really come to the other side of it, which is new initiatives, I think business case is a very important tool that one must adopt. Why are we doing it? What benefit are we expecting out of it? How that benefit is going to be measured?
Yeah.
Who's responsible to
Yeah.
make sure it is all delivered?
Yeah.
And very importantly, what are the risks and issues that you see with this? Okay, if you have a business case for any new initiative, however small or big, which is there, I think you are ticking all the boxes which are required. And then comes the appropriate technology selection, having the right partner, having the right project schedule and plan and everything which is there. Uh,
Right.
I think you will go pretty good if you kind of follow a classical style of doing it, whatever technology it may be. But
Yeah.
that business case is the heart of it.
Yeah.
Are you doing it for a better customer engagement? Are you doing it for expansion of market? Are you doing it for cost reduction? Are you doing it for reducing the process time? I think that has to be adequately. Uh, I mean, a lot of questions have to be asked, and more time that you take in business case, shorter is the time for project implementation and going live successfully. This
Right.
has been my experience. Uh, Keep a eye on the cost and budgeting,
Yeah.
and very importantly, never take your eyes off from IT security because the threat is always changing, and there are always the new things which are coming in, which are there. There are obviously organizations where you got a different CISO, you got different CDO, and
Yeah.
then there's a CIO, there's a CTO,
Yeah.
etc., which is there. But it is also important that all of them should appreciate
Yeah.
that things are same for everybody,
Right.
and security is equally important for a CIO or for a CDO because you cannot really compromise that part of it.
Very true. Very true, sir. So great. I think this has been great. I've honestly come to an end to all my questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Manoj, for taking out time and sharing your journey, your best practices, and insights to the community through our Voice of CIO series. It has been a pleasure to host you. Before we end, I just have one last question, which I keep asking to all the fellow CIOs that in this whole last 8 to 9 months, any new hobby that you picked up, anything which is as an additional apart from the work that we've been discussing so far?
Very interesting question. There was a lot of time that was available, for all of us, which is there. And there's one hobby that I always wanted to pursue, but I think never got a time to do that. So I took up for gardening, and we, so we, it also had, the prime months of summer, and then there was a monsoon that set in, a
Yeah.
lot of monsoon, that set in, which is there. So me and my wife, we actually created a nice garden around our house and a lot of greenery which is there. And I could really see things growing, in front
Nice.
of the eyes. And we tried with different seeds, different kind of plants which are there. This has been a wonderful, time pursuing the hobby, and also see some, back to nature. We are seeing something which is actually very natural,
Yeah.
and it's a pleasure to see something grow. We got some tomatoes out of that, some, some other fruits. So
Yeah.
I think that was really very relaxing, and kept your faith in life, where the
Yes.
media and everything was so much so pessimistic and so scary, in fact,
Yeah.
to put on the channel. I think this is a good getaway. So thank you for asking this question. I think it really struck chord with me.
Yeah. Awesome. Nice. Great, Manoj. Thank you so much once again, and pleasure to host you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Okay.
Awesome.